I played every Blizzard game ever made. Let's check this out. Hey.
In 1991, a small development studio called Silicon and Synapse created a game called RPM Racing. This would be the first original game created by a company that was founded just months earlier. This game features state-of-the-art isometric graphics and real 3D effects despite being a 2D game. I mean, look at this. It looks like the car's really flying through the air. It's amazing. And this wasn't just a simple racing game. It had progression systems. Every race you won would win you money so you could upgrade your engine or your tires or other car parts.
Dude, this actually looks kind of fun, I'm not gonna lie. Dude, I could see myself at an arcade wanting to crank this out, or like, you know, on my little Switch or something if I had one.
I don't really know anything about cars. I got my oil changed for the first time in 4 years last week.
Oh.
I think that's a bad thing. Despite the fact that when I played RPM Racing, I came in last literally every single time by 13 seconds or more, which is a game design issue and not a skill issue, by the way.
I just realized he's like wearing green screen pants. He didn't bother cropping himself out. He just wears green screen pants. That is so weird.
Help but notice the overwhelmingly high quality, despite the fact that this game came out in 1991. That's a long time ago. It makes me wonder whatever happened to Silicon and Synapse. I'm actually gonna look it up right now. They did what to their female employees?
Oh God. Oh Lord. Okay.
Yeah. This wasn't as fun as I thought it was gonna be. Everyone knows that Blizzard used to be a company that could do no wrong. If you saw that Blizzard splash screen at the start of a game, you knew you were in for probably one of the best games of the year. And yet these days, when we see that Blizzard splash screen, we throw up. We throw up and we die. It's easy to say.
We don't die, okay? I'm actually, you know.
Blizzard is bad now. People have been doing that for the past decade, and honestly, they're not wrong. But it's a different thing altogether to go through the entire history of Blizzard.
This sounds cool.
Playing every single game to truly experience that embattening. And so bravely, I did just that. Over the past few months, I've played every single Blizzard game, and it was exhausting. I do want to lay out some ground rules. There were already a lot of games for me to play for this, so I did not include any expansions with only a few exceptions.
That's fair.
I didn't include any ports of other games, which Blizzard did a lot of early. I only wanted to do original Blizzard titles, and I also didn't do any of the remasters, which are probably warranting a whole video on their own. I played all these games as they were when they came out. And if you're wondering how I managed to do that, considering a lot of them aren't available in their original formats anymore.
Wait, yeah, you can't buy Warcraft 3 anymore like that.
Let's just say I have the physical copies of those games.
So do I. At least Warcraft 3.
I have the physical copies of those games. What on earth is that?
What is
Looks
that?
to me like a privacy demon. Privacy demon? Yeah, they come from other dimensions to steal your data and personal information. It's pretty scary, actually. Why is it in my living room? Well, I was just trying to order food, but I guess I accidentally completed some sort of like ancient ritual, so this is on me. Okay, what is it gonna do? Is it dangerous? I think he's gonna try and get your data from data brokers.
It's an ad,
What even are data brokers? They're like these big corporations that buy your personal information from things like social media or grocery store reward programs. These data brokers collect all that information and then sell it to other companies. And you're telling me this demon is going to get my data from those places?
Oh no.
Yeah, and those companies are susceptible to data breaches, so this demon and really anyone else could find your personal information and use it against you. Oh God, okay, is there anything I can do to stop it? Yeah, I would say you have two options in this situation. The first would be to sacrifice your soul to a more powerful demon that can defeat this one, or you can use this video's sponsor, Delete Me. I use Delete Me, and I've never had a privacy demon issue.
Dude, I thought it was gonna be NordVPN. This is not what I expected. Okay.
Delete Me will automatically find and remove your information from hundreds of data broker websites. You just have to sit back and relax while it happens. I've personally used it myself. This is actually my dashboard I'm showing right now.
Oh God.
Okay, yeah, how do I sign up? Okay, well, good news, and you should hear this too. If you go to joindeleteme.com/idle right now, you'll get 20% off US consumer plans. So it's even cheaper than it normally is to protect yourself. Again, just use code IDLE for 20% off and then you won't have a privacy demon. Like I said, we have a lot of games to go through here. So I broke down the games into eras. Because if I broke down every single game in detail, we'd be here for a long time. but I'll probably end up giving all of my in-depth thoughts on each of these games on my Patreon, so link in the description, as low as $1 a month.
Okay, cool. The boob era. Wait, what does that mean?
Don't ask, it'll make sense later.
Okay.
The boob era features the early days of Blizzard, or Silicon and Synapse as they were called then. This is when the majority of the games the company made were ports of other studios' games
Battle
to platforms
chess.
like the Genesis or the SNES. In between those ports though, they did find time to make their own games. I already talked about
This looks
RPM
good, though.
Racing, but The
I'll play
Lost
this.
Vikings from 1992 is the game that in a lot of ways put Silicon and Synapse on the map. It's had a
I
lasting
never played this.
legacy despite it really not being what people think of when they think Blizzard. I mean, IGN has it listed as the 30th best SNES game of all time. That puts it
Really?
above both SimCity and NBA Jam, but that doesn't make any sense because in NBA Jam, you get to play as Bill Clinton and Al Gore. I haven't played a game that lets me play as a former or sitting president in years, so I don't believe that Lost Vikings can really be better than that. And it turns out, it's not. I didn't really like it.
It
The
really
Lost
looks
Vikings
like the graphics reminds me so much of Sonic.
a puzzle side scroller where you have to switch between these three Vikings who all have different abilities to solve puzzles and get them back home.
Oh, shit.
All the while having this little freak staring at you, and you don't even get to kill him. I just really don't like the way he's looking at me. I don't know.
Big
what
Sonic
it
vibes,
is.
yeah.
I just found the whole switching between the Vikings tedious, and the level design was just bad sometimes. Like, in what world is this not a wall? I thought for the whole time
Wait,
that
what?
was a wall, and it took me 15 minutes to find out it was just set decoration. Realistically, the
Dude,
game's
that is actually kind of bait.
probably just not for me. Or everyone's wrong, and
Yeah.
I'm right, and it's actually a very bad game.
Incidentally, the next two games that Silicon and Synapse released, Death and Return of Superman and Rock and Roll Racing, are both also
Wait, they made a Superman game?
luckily, neither of these
What?
ended up on any best SNES games of all time list. But to be fair, Rock and Roll Racing did end up on a now deleted Reddit users must-have SNES games list, and they included NBA Jam ahead of Rock and Roll Racing.
Roll
So
Racing
this
was
list
dope.
is infinitely better than the IGN one. You might notice that Rock and Roll Racing
Wasn't there something about this game where like there's like an Arthas vehicle or some shit? Maybe I remember wrong.
looks a whole lot like RPM Racing, and
Maybe that's another
because
one.
It was supposed to be RPM Racing 2, but at the last second, Silicon and Synapse got the rights to some rock and roll music and decided that's the personality of the game now.
Oh.
That's what the whole game's about. Rock and Roll Racing is actually an upgrade over RPM Racing. The hero system is super cool and the racing just feels better, especially with a focus on combat. But the whole time, I just was thinking about Twisted Metal. What? No, not the
Wait, I think I played that.
on combat, but the whole time, I just was thinking about Twisted
I think I played this game as a kid. Isn't this where you like have a car and you get a bunch of weapons for the car or something? It's goated? I remember it. I think like just the way it looks, I remember that. You get a bunch of weapons, right? Shit, that's just unlocked like a memory. Oh my god.
Metal. What? No, not the Twisted Metal show. No one has ever talked about the Twisted Metal show. What are
Crazy.
you talking about? And Death and Return of Superman was just weird. It's your classic
strange.
side-scrolling beat-em-up game. There's not much to it. So for this, I decided to defer to a much more qualified reviewer's opinion. Justin from DCInThe80s.com did a really great, thorough review of the game and its
God.
development and its story and all of that. So I would highly recommend reading this if you want more in-depth thoughts on the game.
Arcade
But all
games
you
are
need
cool,
to know
though.
is that he didn't like it either. So
Oh.
thanks for watching. And
Okay. This arcade it seems very sweet and contains most of risk games. You might actually have it. Yeah, maybe. I mean, I think it's just cool seeing all these like old arcade style games and where they came from.
last but
why
certainly
you wanted to
least
watch it.
in the boob era, we have Blackthorn, a game I hate. Blackthorn came out in 1994 as a combat platformer that had bad platforming and also bad combat. Who wouldn't want that?
The controls in this game
Pilsen?
are terrible. Like, you can only jump horizontally, and to jump up a ledge, you have to holster your weapon and walk into the wall, and then your guy will jump up himself. And the combat is just you and the bad guy snuggling up against the backdrop, which makes you immune to bullets until one of you gets bored enough to try and shoot the other. But hey, look at those.
That That looks so dumb.
Graphics, wow, 3D. Everything about this game makes it difficult to play, and
Okay.
that's not the sign of a good game.
Oh gosh.
Honestly, Blackthorn might not be the worst game I played this video objectively, but I assure you, it is my least favorite, and that's saying something. Hold on, wait a second.
It's one of
I
those
just
games
noticed
that has, like, a cult
Blackthorn loads
following.
up with a Blizzard Entertainment splash screen, but I thought they were called Silicon and Synapse back then. What's that all about?
Let me answer that question with a question.
Okay.
What's the first thing you think of when you hear Silicon and Synapse? If you said fake boobs, then you're on the same page as the people who were calling then president of Silicon and Synapse, Alan Adam.
What we actually got over the phone was silicone. Isn't that what you put in women's breast implants?
What?
And what the hell is a synapse?
Why were people calling the president of a game studio saying, hey, your name reminds me of fake boobs?
What?
I don't know, but the people had had enough.
Yeah.
So Silicon and Synapse changed their name to what we all know and love it as today, Chaos Studios.
Oh yeah.
Wait a second, that's not right. Okay, so they actually changed their name to Chaos Studios for like a month, and then they got extorted by a company called Chaos Technologies who were like, hey, pay us if you want to use that name. And they were like, no. So they changed their name to Blizzard Entertainment, and the rest was history.
Blizzard is a better name, man. It like Silicon. On my way to Silicon Valley to see some tits. Yeah, it's not the greatest name, right?
Anyway, that's why I called this the boob era.
Okay.
It was just a weird joke.
The entire era of early games from Blizzard showed a lot of what the company was capable of. With Lost Vikings, they showed they could make a game with interesting mechanics lots of people would enjoy.
Yep.
Not me, though. I hated it. And with Blackthorn and even the racing games, there was clear technical and graphical ability
Lots
on
of
display.
variety in it, too.
But these games just felt flat to me. Like any company could have put them out.
Yeah, it doesn't really have a theme. It just seems like random games. They have a Superman game, they have a game with some Vikings, then they have a racing game, and then they have like some sort of like Rambo forest. Like what is like? There's just like no linear like. What kind of games do they make?
And that's because any company could have. These games weren't the kinds of games that the devs at Blizzard wanted to be working on.
Yeah.
They were just using the money from the publishers as a way to fund the games they
It's
wanted
just random,
to make.
right?
And in late 1994, they were able to do just that.
Oh, I think I played this very briefly, Orcs and Humans, but I never like actually played it. I think it was like very, very little that I played it.
For the name of this era, I Google searched synonyms for up and coming, and thesaurus.com gave me girl boss.
What?
So that's why that's there.
In 1994, Blizzard released
I
their
remember
first
this.
RTS and first self-published game, Warcraft, Orcs, and Humans.
Yeah.
This was the moment Blizzard started becoming what we know it as today. Well, actually, no, okay. It started becoming what we knew it as like 15 years ago, not how we know it today. Whatever, they made a good game. I've never actually played any of the Warcraft series, and
Okay.
I was so looking forward to playing each and every one of these games because they're all important parts of gaming history.
Very OG,
and I
man.
pretty quickly found out why. Warcraft 1 is the first game I played that I actually lost track of time playing. I feel
That's how you know a game is
like you
good.
could tell it was made by a team of people who loved the RTS genre, specifically Dune 2, which is often credited as the first of its kind and a direct
Yo, Nero, fuck you.
inspiration
Thank you.
for
50 months.
Warcraft.
Thank you.
What's even better, though, is you could also tell it was made by people who wanted to innovate on that genre, not just chase a trend. For example, Warcraft 1 innovated by having the units get angry if you clicked on them too much.
Oh,
Whoa, stop poking me! Whoa, stop poking me!
Warcraft 1
That's
was also
funny.
one of the first RTS games to allow box selecting units, and Patrick
Yeah.
Wyatt, who was a senior developer at Blizzard at the time, wrote in his blog that you could control as many as 100 units at a time
That's
in the early
insane.
builds of the game.
I think my IQ is too low to play like RTS like effectively because I've sometimes seen some of those like pro players in like Starcraft and Warcraft 3, and dude, they press like 1 billion buttons at a time. I always liked like very like I like the custom games in Warcraft 3, but that's because it wasn't as crazy demanding for the brain, right?
incredible technical innovation compared to what was out there at the time, and I can't wait
Yeah.
to try that out. Hey Patrick, I understand that 100 units at a time may have been too many, but why can I only select 4 units at a time? Patrick says
Yo, Silas, think of 5 months.
this is so players had to think tactically about positioning and all that, but I'm gonna go ahead and say that was a bad move. The fact that you can only control 4 units at a time makes launching any sort of attack on the enemy AI basically impossible without heavily weakening them first. This is made worse by the fact that the AI can control as many units as it wants at the same time, and it just makes the whole thing feel unfair and bad. Plus, you can't even hotkey units in Warcraft 1, so there's no quickly controlling different groups. You have to select them all each time, and you just gotta hope you selected the right ones.
I do think Warcraft 1 is genuinely a good game, and I imagine playing it back in 1994 would have been a mind-blowing experience. But it's also definitely a game that can't hide from its age. There's so many things, both as technical limitations and design decisions, that just hold Warcraft 1 back. And
it does look like an old game, right? 300,000 copies though.
Even back when it came out, it didn't explode in popularity, but it did sell enough to allow Blizzard to fund their next game, Warcraft II: Tides of Darkness. This game's fucking good.
They stepped
Unlike
it up.
Warcraft 1, Warcraft 2 was an immediate hit when it came out. And it's really not hard to see why. I mean, the graphics alone are so much better than
dude, it looks like twice as good. Holy
Warcraft
shit.
1, despite being made only a year later. But it also did so much to smooth out the rough edges from Warcraft 1.
I always thought that this was like, I thought it was like hair, like their hair, like they had like a hairstyle. Whenever I saw this picture, like that hairstyle where they have like that little it's like what I can't explain it. It's like that thing where there's like an elephant trunk. I always thought it was that.
You could select up to 9 units now. That's incredible. For you math nerds,
Pompadour,
that's 125% more units. Wow! And the story was just better. It had characters you really could care about and understand. And they added naval combat where you could attack oil rigs. I could finally cause my own Deepwater Horizon oil spill. A lot of you weren't even born when that happened. Warcraft 2 really just took what Warcraft 1 was and made more of it and improved on it. It's the perfect sequel. Warcraft 2 was also the first Blizzard game to ever get an expansion in the form of Beyond the Dark Portal. This is the first game I'm just going to recommend outright. Is it perfect by today's standards? It looks good. No, but it's extremely enjoyable, and it's a sign of what Blizzard was doing even in their earlier years, where they weren't afraid to innovate and push the genres they were working in further. You can tell just by playing this game, and from Warcraft 1 to be honest, how much passion there was in these games.
Reading through Patrick Wyatt's...
I love clicking the critters until they blew up. Oh yeah, you could do that.
...blog posts on the development of Warcraft, he says as much. Like when Alan Adham wanted to try and license the Warhammer IP to be the setting of what would become Warcraft 1, the dev team behind the game was hesitant because they wanted ownership of the whole thing, from the tech down to the story and the characters they were creating. At the same time that Blizzard was making Warcraft 1, they met another small studio called Condor, who had been following a similar path to Blizzard, making small ports of games while dreaming of making one of their passion projects. Long story short, Blizzard and Condor did what the Sims would call woohoo together, Condor became Blizzard North, the San Francisco branch of Blizzard. Oh, wait, hold on. Did woohoo mean sex? Blizzard North released Diablo in January 1997.
I have still never played this game. I want to play it one day. I want to do a stream where we actually beat Diablo 1. I think that'd be really fun.
And this game fucking rules, dude.
Yeah.
Stop what you're doing and go find a physical copy of this game, like I did, and play it right now. I swear to God it's worth your time. Wait, what's that? You think I'm lying when I say I got a physical copy of Diablo? Well, I wasn't lying. This is my physical Diablo CD. Who's lying now, idiot?
Oh shit.
Just don't ask to see the physical
I do want to do it for real.
Other games.
Diablo is both incredibly simple and incredibly deep. You're launched right into the game with no character creation, tutorials, or lore. You name your character something normal, and you're off to the races. The entire game is centered around the town of Tristram and the Labyrinth, which is 16 levels of pure, unadulterated, spooky stuff.
Wait, so the whole thing is just like a big-ass crypt? What?
Each layer deeper you go into the labyrinth, the tougher the monsters get, the more alien and hellish the environment becomes, and the more powerful the loot you find is. The entire labyrinth is randomly generated, but the quests are randomly selected from a pool of possible quests too, which means no two playthroughs are going to have the exact same experience.
Wait, that's actually kind of cool. Wait, that's sick. Carl, thank you for the 20 months. Wait, so it's like... What? That's sick.
Diablo has a simple loop. Kill things and get loot.
Yeah.
And it does it so well. I beat this game in a day because it's really not that long, but you can keep playing it because it gets harder each time you beat it, and it's just so addicting because they knew what they wanted to do, and they made sure they did it really well. It's not without its faults, though. There's issues like if a creature is walking diagonally, you'll just not be able to hit it with your arrows.
Dude, this game looks really good, though. It looks very, very, very good. For sure, dude, we should do that Diablo stream. I actually really want to do it.
The feature where your gear is destroyed when it hits 0 durability instead of being useless until repaired. Despite all its faults, though, Diablo is still an iconic game for a reason. Yes, it's dated, but to me, it holds up today.
When you take a step back and look at the last 3 games Blizzard had released at this point, it's kind of incredible. All 3 of these games are iconic in their own right and reinvented or even invented the genre they were in. Blizzard was
playthrough? I think we should, man.
Just on an all-time heater with their last 3 releases, and I, for one, cannot wait to see what they have next for me to play.
Lost Vikings 2.
I mean, what do you
Wait,
want me to say?
He made the wait, what? This looks so weird.
What do you want me to say? The last 3 games were like transcendent video games.
Oh god, I really... Is it Rayman this reminds me of? Like the graphics and the characters? It looks like very Rayman style.
Then they released a sequel to a decent SNES game. It just feels like, oh, who invited you here? Yes, I did play Lost Vikings 2. I played all of these games, and it's fine, I guess. The graphics, I would argue, are actually worse than the first game, but
it's a different style of graphics, for sure.
The puzzles are better, the level design is better, and the new unique abilities that the 3 Vikings have are cool. I really want to move on to the next game because it's a game I've been dying to play like my entire life. Okay, so you know how we got Warcraft? Well, what if we had Warcraft in space?
Oh!
I call it Star Wars.
Starcraft was Blizzard doing that silly little thing they did in the 90s. Where
dude, just seeing this gives me nostalgia. Holy shit, man. I remember this.
They released games that would be extraordinarily well received and influence a whole generation of gamers. Those little goofballs. I played Brood War instead of the base version of StarCraft because that
dude, Brood War
was the game that I always heard those balding white dudes tell me to play whenever I played Age of Mythology as a kid. I didn't listen to them back then, but as a bald white guy myself now, I felt ready to take this one on.
Dude, I love that on like you can on the characters. You see like their damage, like their health on their like arms and legs and stuff, like the colors. It's so sick, man. I love it. This is the version on SNES. Oh yeah, this looks way better. Yeah, this graphics fits a lot better. You're right, Quagon. Yeah, he probably put in the wrong game in the video then. That's actually a good point.
And Brood War was interesting to me. It was the first RTS of the 3 I've played so far that really felt like a modern RTS.
Yeah.
It doesn't have any of those rough around the edges parts that Warcraft 2 had to make microing units uncomfortable or managing your resources a pain.
I also loved the kind of realistic style portraits of the characters. It's such a small thing, but it really like makes it more immersive to like you're actually like, you know, running around with those characters and shit.
In 1998, Brood War also came out with something called BattleNet, which, believe it or not, was actually really cool back in the day and not just an annoying launcher that tried to sell you the 18th Black Ops game. BattleNet is truthfully just as important as any game Blizzard launched in the 90s, considering the impact it had on gaming at the time. BattleNet let players play games like Warcraft 2 and Starcraft and Diablo over the internet for free in a seamless experience. The fact that it was free and so frictionless was mind-blowing. I remember watching my brother play Diablo 2. So sorry, I'm just really excited to talk about that game. I remember watching my brother play Diablo 2 in 2002 and being blown away by all the people in the lobby of the game that were talking and trading and partying up to take on the Hell campaign. But why am I telling you this? Because I didn't really enjoy the campaign for Brood War. I thought the missions were repetitive and the story was lackluster, but
I'm not gonna lie, I don't remember what I did in this game, but I just remember playing it. Because I was a kid. I don't know how old I was whenever I was playing this, but I remember I played it. And I loved it, right? Yeah, I don't know if I did the campaign. I don't know if I did like versus. I don't know what I did, but I just remember I played it. Yeah. Battle.net was debuted a few days after Diablo's release, not Starcraft. Diablo 1, you mean, Craig?
Doesn't mean it's a bad game. What Brood War was for most people was an incredibly well-made, competitive RTS, and the first of its kind that could be played with all of your friends and people you met on the forums. Brood War is fondly remembered by fans of it almost entirely.
Dude, I don't remember, what is this race called? This was my favorite race. I don't know, remember what they're called. They're like the circling ones. Cirque, the Cirque, yeah, the Cirque. This was my favorite. I loved these. I don't know why. It was so cool being able to make like 1 billion of those small little circlings and just like destroy bases. And then you have that big giga fucking insane one that was like so massive, like the Hydralisk or like something like that. That shit was insane too. Ultralisk, yes, that one.
It was extremely popular up until the release of Starcraft II for that reason too. So while I can't recreate that experience, I can appreciate that this
Protoss is biz. I don't know, man. I feel like Protoss that's like for nerds, man. Okay, dude, you go Cirque, eh?
Is a good RTS, just with a mid-campaign, and that Blizzard provided an amazing service at the time at no additional cost. It was a true player's first mentality by them, something we might not always get from them. With StarCraft, you get 2 firsts from Blizzard. First of all, you get the first game they have inducted into the World Gaming Hall of Fame. Did you know that was a thing? I didn't, but StarCraft's in it. And so is Wii Sports. That's awesome. But StarCraft also signified the moment that Blizzard was no longer an up-and-coming girl boss studio. They were now dominating the world.
Ooh. Okay, well, here comes.
At this point, Blizzard had reached the status very few studios have ever managed to reach.
Yeah.
They were the kind of developer that you went and bought a game you would normally have no interest in just because their name was attached to it.
Yeah.
That was the power they had. And they rewarded their fans at this point by delivering what I think are 2 of the best games ever made. Diablo II and Warcraft 3. Both of these games—
Dude, that is just 2 bangers. Like back-to-back bangers.
Deserve their own videos, and there's plenty out there on YouTube, but I'll do my best to explain, revisiting them today, what makes them so good and so special. Diablo 2 was one of my favorite games growing up, and revisiting it today, even though I haven't played it in like 20 years.
I remember, we have something in Denmark called a klub, where like you go after school, so whenever you're like in 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, whatever, you go to the club afterwards, and in that club that I went to, there was like, I think like 10 computers. And we would all go there after school and we would play Warcraft 3, we would play Diablo 2, we would play Unreal Tournament 2, we would have such a freaking good time, and I loved it, man. Oh my god, that was such a good time. Yeah, Counter-Strike 1.6, Unreal Tournament 2, Diablo 2, Warcraft 3, all that shit, man. It was so good.
Was amazing.
Quake, I think also Quake was there. Yeah, Quake was there too. We did it in the UK too, man. That's just memories for me. Especially Unreal Tournament 2. I have played an unethical amount of that game as well.
Love you. The world of Diablo 2 managed to take that feeling and satisfaction from Diablo 1 and expand on it in an incredible level of detail. You weren't restricted to one labyrinth anymore. You could go to a desert, to a mountaintop, to the creepiest depths of hell. It's just mind-blowing the amount they squeezed into this game. And that's not even talking about the new character customization options like the skill tree that really made Diablo 1 look just super, super basic. Because it was. Because a good sequel should be more and better. And Diablo 2 is more. And it's
the 3 barbarians, dude.
Better. There's so many different builds you can play with.
I haven't done this in so long, man. Just seeing these just installs dopamine in my brain.
And they're all so satisfying in their own ways, and they provide unique challenges. And eventually, once you get to hell difficulty and you're like, oh my god, is my build not good enough? Am I gonna have to respec, but I'm out of respec, so what do I do? So then you trade with other players. I'm willing to admit that a lot of my enjoyment of Diablo 2 might have to do with nostalgia. That's totally possible.
No.
But I'm not gonna say that it relies on nostalgia.
I think Diablo 2 is the same thing as Warcraft, World of Warcraft Vanilla. It's like a lot of the driving factor is nostalgia, but it's genuinely just a good ARPG. It's just a good game.
It's too good of a game to
You could never get into the Diablo games. I loved it. I love playing Diablo as a kid.
that. There's still a pretty sizable content creation scene for Diablo 2
Yeah,
more
Mr.
than
Llama.
20 years after it came out. That's crazy. As for Warcraft 3, I have no nostalgia for that game. I've never played it. And yet it's still fucking rocked.
But just like how Diablo II took its predecessor and expanded on it in ways that made it its own extremely special game, Warcraft 3 did that to an even larger degree.
I played through the campaigns. I never really did like any verses, like RTS like verses, because I hated it, because I sucked at it. But I did the campaign, and I did a buttload of custom games, and I have spent an unethical amount of time as well in the map creator, where me and one of my friends, we used to play a game where we would have like 30 minutes to each make a map. So I would go into the map creator and he would go into the map creator, and we would both make like a Warcraft 3 map. And then the challenge was for the other person to then beat the map that you made. Dude, oh my god, we spent so much time, man. God, I love this game.
Even larger degree. That's really hard for me to say because I love Diablo 2 so much. Playing Warcraft 3 for the first time, I was expecting to enjoy it, but I was also expecting to run into a lot of awkward mechanics and story moments. I mean, it is over 22 years old. But instead, I fell in love. What Warcraft 3 did with its mechanics, specifically the hero system where you basically got to play an RPG inside of an RTS,
it's cool.
is amazing, and I love it. And look at these graphics. I can't explain it, but I love them.
It looks
Even
good.
these really weird portraits. Like, yikes, why does this guy look like he's talking like... But I still think it's weirdly beautiful. And yet the story this game and its expansion, The Frozen Throne, tells is even better.
Oh my god, I can just hear the chains when you click on something, it goes ding ding, and then you're, oh my god. And then forgetting my passwords all the time for my account, so I have to create a new one every single time I log into Battle.net.
This is just because I've played and know a lot about the WoW lore, specifically up to the Wrath of the Lich King expansion.
Shit.
But I loved seeing and playing through all of these hugely important story moments for the first time. But what really blew me away about the story was how it's communicated to you, not just through dialogue and character interaction, but through the missions themselves.
Yeah.
Giant Grind Games has a great, brief retrospective on Warcraft 3's campaign, and he describes the Calling of Stratholme mission, a defining moment of one of the best video game characters ever made, as well as anyone.
Yeah.
The only thing to do is burn the houses, kill the civilians, and repeat. It's tedious monotony. It's an act that is so unchallenging that it incentivizes turning the slaughter of an entire city into a process of mindless efficiency. Stratholme works not because the mission is fun, but because it was designed with pure utilitarian efficiency.
There's so much care put into this game, and it really comes through when you play it. Diablo 2 and Warcraft 3 represent the best of what Blizzard had to offer at this point, and these games help push them to the top of the gaming industry. I mean, Diablo 2 became the fastest selling PC game of all time until 2 years later, when Warcraft 3 became the fastest selling PC game of all time. Both of these games were also being hugely propped up by their multiplayer communities, especially Warcraft 3. Warcraft 3 shipped with a map editor and had a huge custom game scene that, through Battle.net, became extremely popular. People were basically creating entirely new games inside of Warcraft 3.
So
I wonder
sick.
if anything came from that. Blizzard was at the forefront of the multiplayer scene in gaming, and they were about to take that to the next level.
Oh, here we
I
go.
said that Warcraft 1 was an example of Blizzard taking a genre that was already existing, but improving it and innovating on it in ways that no other company had to that point. Well, that's what World of Warcraft was, and yet on a much, much bigger scale.
There we
Playing
go.
through classic World of Warcraft, you can definitely feel the influence of the MMOs that came before it, like Ultima
Dude, hardcore this October, chat.
and EverQuest. But you can also tell that they did not want to just chase that trend. They had their own idea for what would make a good, massively multiplayer game. That's what I think made it so special back in 2004 and why it has staying power today. It's a very intentional game. Blizzard took the world that they had established in their 3 Warcraft games and turned it into one of the first ever theme park MMOs.
So fucking
Unlike
good,
Sandbox,
man. Wait, no. Hey, I wasn't done.
Staying power today. It's a very intentional game. Blizzard took the world that they had established in their 3 Warcraft games and turned it into one of the first ever theme park MMOs.
There you go.
Unlike sandbox MMOs, which just threw you into a world and said, figure it out, theme park MMOs were really designed to walk you through the world step by step, without you knowing it, though.
It was just so good, man. God damn, I love this game, dude. I can't. So some of these games really, like, looking at it, man, a lot of these games are just my childhood, bro. Diablo II, Warcraft 3, Starcraft, like World of Warcraft. All this shit, man, is so much nostalgia for me. It's crazy. God. When I join OnlyFans, you're gonna hardcore. I don't really know yet. It depends on like the raid times that they're doing and stuff like that. I might end up doing some EU gaming. Maybe I'll join the OnlyFans and NA. I'm not sure. We'll see.
Like in most of Classic WoW's leveling, you feel like you have this freedom to do whatever
maybe
you
you're
want
right,
to do,
Chris.
but the quests and leveling zones were really carefully designed so that you would progress in a pretty similar way to everyone else, and that progression was made to be extremely satisfying. I'm not saying this is a bad thing. I actually think it's a good thing. And so did everyone else. World of Warcraft is insanely popular. The biggest thing about World of Warcraft, though, was how much more accessible it was than other MMOs at the time. Compared to some of those games, World of Warcraft was really easy.
Yeah.
So much.
It was considered an incredibly casual game compared to like EverQuest and like all the current MMOs in the scene, right? It was insane, man. OnlyFans 2.0 Guzu and Savix fighting side by side again. I don't know yet. My childhood was Crash Bandicoot and Spyro. Dude, Crash Bandicoot, fucking good game as well. Spyro, creme de la creme as well.
The content could be done solo, especially questing, which was not the case back then. The devs knew what the game was, and that's why even though the grind from level 1 to 60 and getting all the
Hey man, he's playing Sod though. That's not, he's playing Sod. I just want to point that out.
Gear was a slog, it was still fun, and it's still fun to this day for a lot of people, me included. Before you say nostalgia,
WoW was not casual back then. Compared to other MMOs on the market, it was. It was actually considered like a very casual MMO compared to like most of the other shit that was going on. It was very, very chill.
I did not play World of Warcraft for the first time until 2023. So
EverQuest,
I don't give a shit about the history of this game. I just like it.
And that's not to mention the technical innovation that World of Warcraft was. Most notably, the lack of loading screens as you walk through the world.
Yeah.
That was unimaginable.
That was the
back
craziest
in the day,
thing for me.
especially on the scale it was pulled off in. What I'm saying is that WoW was groundbreaking on so many levels, from game design to technology, and you can feel the intention behind every aspect of the game as you play through it. There's a video I love going back to from 2005. This is Jeff Kaplan, designer and game director on World of Warcraft, talking about the design and thought process behind raids in vanilla World of Warcraft.
Cool.
And watching this video, you can feel his excitement and passion about the whole process, and that at the end of the day, the whole team just wanted to make an amazing game that they themselves would want to play. And they did that. That's why decades later, Vanilla WoW and Diablo II and Warcraft 3 have all stood the test of time. They were made by people who played video games and wanted to create the next generation of great games. This whole section is what the kids would call glazing.
Yeah. Honestly though, even Starcraft 2, I think Starcraft 2 wasn't that the game that kind of became the first big, like, massive esport as well? I think at least in Asia, like Starcraft 2 was freaking massive for like esports. That was, maybe not Starcraft 2, maybe just Starcraft in general, like Starcraft 1. But yeah, that was like what really made esports big back then, right?
I'm turning 30 soon. Following World of Warcraft, Blizzard's pace of releasing new standalone games would slow down really dramatically. Their focus shifted to patching and releasing expansions for their new cash cow, and if I'm being honest, I think this is where things start to take a turn for Blizzard. Don't get me wrong, they did still put out great stuff for a while. Burning Crusade and Wrath of the Lich King were really great expansions in their own right. And StarCraft II, which I'll talk about in a second, was an amazing sequel. Oh, I almost forgot to write the script for StarCraft II. Whoops. StarCraft II came out in 2010.
Bro, is this the remade version? This looks really good. This looks very good.
6 years after World of Warcraft was released, and I could not wait to revisit this game because I played it when it released.
This is the normal version?
The next cooking stream.
This looks nice.
Friends had so much fun on it, even though I was complete dog shit at it. The campaign for StarCraft II is just amazing in my opinion. It's full of interesting missions and great characters. The meta progression systems they added so you can improve your units between missions or upgrade mercs was a great way to make each mission feel valuable outside of its self-contained story. And the details added all around the game and its cutscenes were just beautiful. Like this arcade machine that I randomly clicked on the ship in the Wings of Liberty campaign, and I found out there's a game on it called Lost Viking. That's a reference to the Lost Vikings, but also a Viking is a unit in StarCraft. It's adorable. This whole campaign was so fun to go back to, and it's just And by the way, the multiplayer scene is still alive, albeit just a bit small in Starcraft II. I decided to try out some multiplayer games, dusting off my old Zergling Rush strategy from the day. And let's just say, I still got it.
Oh, no, okay.
Ignore that part where it says AI very easy. That was just the guy's username. What? You don't believe me? Okay, well, here's me playing against an actual real person, and yeah, I got my ass kicked.
Yeah,
I'm
there it
really
is.
bad at StarCraft, guys. StarCraft II is the last entry into the StarCraft series, likely ever,
That's
and has
insane.
fallen by the wayside as far as support from Blizzard goes. So
Crazy, like I guess like Warcraft and like the Warcraft universe became their like cash cow, right? But I like StarCraft is a sick like the theme of StarCraft is cool, I think.
StarCraft II's development started back in 2003, before World of Warcraft was released, and I don't think it got to feel the full effect that WoW had on the company.
In 2017, the game went free to play, and the Twitter account just started tweeting some weird stuff.
If you don't love me at my, then you don't deserve me at my. Dude, what?
Like, the Twitter admin would just brag about things like how StarCraft II has no pay-to-win mechanics, or you don't need to invest any time to unlock the Wings of Liberty campaign for free, or how you can play co-op for free right out the gate. I think pretty much what they were doing was shitting on Battle Pass mechanics. This isn't gonna age well. Oh, also, they created this weird fan edit of The Force Awakens, but with Protoss units. Can someone explain this to me? I don't get it. For a lot of fans, this is the last entry in the golden era of Blizzard. Not only is it the last real-time strategy game Blizzard would make, but it's also, for a lot of people, the last high-quality game they would ever put out. But at this point in 2010, World of Warcraft was still dominating, and Blizzard remained at the top of the gaming industry, and really hadn't done anything wrong.
Here's the storm
until...
Oh, God. To be fair, I'll just say, man, I actually really enjoyed my first campaign of Diablo 3. Didn't really touch it after that, but I liked playing through it once, and I enjoyed that. But yeah.
In 2012, Diablo 3 came out. I played it again, guys. I played it again. If you know anything about me, you know how I feel about it. I want to take a step back really quickly and talk about the development of Diablo 3, because I think that really
There was a lot of bad things about it, obviously. You know, the Arrow 32, there was also the real money auction house, and a bunch of stuff. I kind of liked Diablo 3 for what it was. I enjoyed it. Back then when I played it, I had a fun time. I did. And then they also did that expansion pack with the, what is it, the guy with the scythes. I don't remember the name of it. I never played that though, but I heard that was when it got quite good actually.
To show that things at
Reaper
Blizzard
of Souls,
were just going wrong from top to bottom.
Blizzard North, the creators of the first two Diablo games, were in the middle of production on Diablo 3 in 2005. If you look around enough on the internet, you'll find screenshots of what Diablo 3 looked like from Blizzard North, and screenshots don't really mean anything, but
it kind of reminds me of Path of Exile, some of these screenshots.
If you look around enough on the internet, you'll find screenshots of what Diablo 3 looked like from
I'm really getting like PoE vibes from those.
Blizzard North, and screenshots don't really mean
like, especially this one here, I feel like
anything, but the tone of the game seemed like it was what we wanted from Diablo 3. But overall, the whole situation was just a shame. A few of the developers from Blizzard North were moved over to the main Blizzard offices to work on the new version of Diablo 3, but the bulk of the game was put into the hands of existing Blizzard employees, and Jay Wilson and Chris Metzen were made the leaders of the project.
I played a Barbarian. Yeah.
Time in developing and talking about Diablo 3 publicly, Jay Wilson and his team spent more time talking about how Diablo 2 wasn't actually a good game.
What?
And how people's memories of it were clouded by nostalgia and not facts. This
why would they do that? Wait, what?
Statement is something that Blizzard will become a fan of repeating for quite a few more years.
Oh no.
The 4 years between the Diablo 3 announcement and its release just felt like it was partly a smear campaign on Diablo 2 for no reason. To quote Indigo Gaming from his great documentary on the development of Diablo 3, they saw Diablo 2 as something to be corrected instead of something to be perfected. I've said it a few times now that the best way to make sequels is to take the previous game, make more of it, and make it better.
That's true.
It's a gross oversimplification of the process, but I think it's generally accurate. Revisiting Diablo 3 and the whole Diablo series for this project, I can confidently say that's just not what they did with this game.
Yeah, Diablo 3 is very different from, I guess I haven't played Diablo 1, but at least from Diablo 2, it's very, very different.
The campaign has just a terrible, nonsensical story that telegraphs any plot twist it sets up from the very first moments of the game. They kill off beloved, iconic characters in the most anticlimactic ways, and the whole thing can be completed in a day easily. And as it turns out, the lackluster campaign is just a teaser for the absolutely phoned-in endgame.
I just didn't like the way Diablo looked in Diablo 3. I don't know why. I didn't like the way that Diablo looked.
What made Diablo 2 so fun was the loot. It made the repetitiveness of the grinds feel rewarding. Plus, with the different bosses you could kill, there was always some variety to it all. That's not to say Diablo 2's endgame is great.
Was he a lady?
It's not.
I'm not
It's
sure.
what should have been improved on. But instead, all we got was greater rifts, which overwhelm you with loot to the point that none of it means anything, while feeling like the same thing over and over again because your character is already overpowered and doing damage per second in the literal millions. I do think the expansion Reaper of Souls is a general improvement on the game, but Diablo 3 still feels so out of touch and disconnected from not only what the Diablo series is, but what players of ARPGs really wanted. It was the first time we saw Blizzard seemingly not at all understand what was fun about the kind of game they were making. And it was the last time for over a decade that we'd see Blizzard release a standalone game with any sort of story or campaign, a staple of the company for so long.
Everything surrounding Diablo 3, from its development to its release, not even touching on the decision to make the game online only for no good reason, was just a mess.
This is odd. I don't know why they did that. And then they made it only online, and then they had that stupid bug with their Battle.net system not working properly, so you just couldn't play the freaking game.
Back then, and revisiting it today, it's clear that they just didn't know what they were doing to try and reignite this genre. There was no intention behind this game. It wasn't more and better, it was actually less and worse. I don't know how you pull that off. And yet somehow Diablo 3 is just the start of a string of really underwhelming or straight up bad games that I had to play.
I didn't hate Diablo 3 that much. I agree with some of the stuff that he's saying, obviously, but I think looking back at it, overall, my experience with Diablo 3 wasn't as horrible as everybody makes it out to be. I didn't hate it that much. I had a decent time playing it, honestly. It wasn't one of my favorite games ever, but I think it was okay. I didn't hate it.
I'm gonna speedrun the next two games because while I wouldn't say they're horrible, they also
you just did the campaign. That is probably true. Yeah, that is probably true as well.
Don't have a lot to offer. In 2014, Blizzard released Hearthstone, a free-to-play online card game. I played Hearthstone a little bit back in the day, and playing it for this project, I found the game to be
I liked Hearthstone.
Fine, I guess. My opinion on Hearthstone will always be incomplete.
Dude, I loved playing Hunter, man. Go face. That was my favorite, man. I liked Hunter, and I also really liked Paladin, where you could like giga buff everything. Yeah, Hunter with the phase race with all the little pets and stuff, and then the Paladin build where you just buffed everything and then just did 1 giga damage. That was also super sick.
I'm not a big card game player, and I think you need a fair amount of knowledge on the genre to make a real
Shaman Totem build was also really fun, where you had like totems everywhere. That shit was also cool
about it. But what I can recognize is the voices of people who do love this game, who have seen it year after year fall into disrepair as RNG becomes the driving factor deciding games instead of deck build and skill. In 2018, Ben Brode, the game director for Hearthstone, left Blizzard. While he was credited as being a big part of what made the game successful in its earliest years, he was also a massive part of the community itself. Losing one person doesn't ruin a game or a company, because games aren't made by one person. In fact, it even seems like a lot of people are happy with the direction the game has taken since Ben Brode left. But Brode's departure was symptomatic of what was happening at Blizzard. The people who truly cared about the games they were making were leaving, and not all of them were public-facing. But there was one major public departure that, to me, really put into frame the direction Blizzard was going. But first I have to talk about Heroes of the Storm, because I had to play it, so you have to hear about it.
Heroes of the Storm came out in 2015 as Blizzard's answer to the MOBA genre, which they had actually helped create via Warcraft 3.
Everybody I've heard that played HOTS all say that they actually really like it. I think it just kind of died because, I don't know, they kind of killed off the competitive scene, and I think there's like no solo carry potential in the game, and that turned off a lot of people from it, but I never played it myself, but everybody always says it's really great.
And when they realized that League of Legends and Dota 2 were two of the biggest games in the world, they were like, hey, wait a minute.
What about
No,
us?
stop that. And then Heroes of the Storm came out, and everyone was like, oh.
Could you even buy items in this game? I don't think you can, right? Like I think it's just like levels and then like abilities, correct? No? Yeah, to me that's odd. You have talents. Like I in League of Legends, what really was cool to me was like setting up the goal and bam, you get like Infinity Edge, or you get the Black Cleaver, or you get like, you get your big item, Rabadon's Death Cap and stuff like that. But yeah, I guess it's a little bit of a different system. I can't really talk too much about HOTS because I don't play it. I never played it, so I don't really have a big opinion about it, honestly.
And then they kept playing League of Legends. Heroes of the Storm is definitely not a good game, but then again, what MOBA is?
Good one.
Yeah, I don't play any MOBAs, so I don't know. Can someone tell me? Looking around at the rest of the genre, it's clear that Heroes of the Storm did do some things different, but ultimately, to me, it was just kind of cool to play as characters from other Blizzard games in a different context. And then it lost its novelty, and I was no longer interested in playing. There's just not enough unique or exciting stuff happening in this game. That could be because I just don't like MOBAs, but I think it's actually just the prevailing sentiment around it.
I think I would probably enjoy playing this, because I like MOBAs. I played a lot of League of Legends. I have not really played that much Dota, but I like MOBAs. I would probably enjoy playing it if I tried it.
Honestly, the most exciting thing that happened to me while I was playing Heroes of the Storm is I found out about the most important political event of the last, 2 decades, when there's an attempted assassination of a former president. I literally found out about that while playing Heroes of the Storm. All I can say is thank God the shooter missed, because if for the next 20 years people ask me, oh, where were you when you found out about the assassination of a former president? And I had to say, playing a MOBA, and then they would be like, oh, League of Legends? And I would be like, no. And they'd be like, oh, Dota 2? And I would be like, no. And they'd be like,
oh God.
What? And I'd be like, Heroes of the Storm. And they'd be like, fuck you. Anyway, I really think the worst part of this whole era of Blizzard games is there was only one game that was really highly reviewed by both critics and fans that I was really excited to play.
Whenever I see Overwatch, right, I'm just like, why just not play Team Fortress 2? That's what I think, dude. I just want to play. If I see this game, I'm like, man, I could just be running around on my spine, Team Fortress 2. I could be running around on my demo man. Like, that's just way more cool, man.
And then I found out I couldn't play it.
Overwatch came out in 2016 and is a competitive team shooter game. If any of you have seen my brief cameo on Nade King's channel, you'll know that I am both a bad shooter and a loser. So I was not anticipating doing very well at this game. So imagine how relieved I was when I found out it doesn't exist anymore.
Oh yeah, Overwatch 2. Overwatch was fun at the first year of release. I could imagine. I don't know why I didn't play it, because I was a big Team Fortress fan, so I'm not sure why.
Seriously, there's no way to play this game, which I found weird because when I looked back at the reviews from critics and players, it was extremely well reviewed. Shooter games are never well reviewed.
Oh God.
So then I looked into it. And then I got sad. Overwatch was headed up by Jeff Kaplan, who I talked about earlier as the game director of World of Warcraft. When the game came out, it was praised for its innovative take on the genre that games like Team Fortress 2 had started years earlier. So in 2019, Blizzard set forth to make the next Overwatch game, and they made sure Jeff Kaplan was leading that project as well. Overwatch 2 was promised to be bigger, better, and most importantly, backwards compatible with the original Overwatch. That means players who wanted to stick on the OG game wouldn't have to buy the new one. If it sounds surprising that Blizzard would be okay losing out on additional sales, that's because Jeff Kaplan had to fight hard for it to be that way. Here's what Jeff Kaplan had to say in a
Jeff MVP, man.
Kotaku interview from 2019. The way that I try to convince people, I try to tell them that if we do what's right by the players, they will be happy.
Yeah.
We'll have a better game and we will end up in a better place in the long run.
True.
Rather than having this short-sighted thinking that's usually driven by anxiety of the only way to get players to play Overwatch 2 is to cut off all the Overwatch 1 players and
that's just such a bad way of going about it, man.
Starve them out and force them to come over.
Yeah.
But as you know, I cannot play Overwatch 1.
Yeah.
Jeff Kaplan's aggressive players first stance wasn't allowed to be implemented. He left the company in 2021, and 2 years later, Overwatch 2 came out and the Overwatch 1 servers were shut down. Yeah, I did play Overwatch 2, but a lot like Hearthstone, I'm not qualified to give an opinion on the game itself.
Kind of
I think
same.
You need more time invested in the game to truly understand it, and I think you need more understanding of the genre. So I would recommend reading or watching other reviews, like Unknown Sir's video on the game itself. He has great takes on it. Or Jessica Cogswell review on GameSpot, where she says Overwatch 2 takes the franchise from a genre-defining shooter to a trend-chasing one.
Okay.
Oh, one last thing about Overwatch 2. They added a battle pass system to the game. Eat your heart out, Starcraft Twitter admin.
Like I said with Ben Brode, Jeff Kaplan leaving on its own doesn't mean the company is falling apart or all future games are going to suck. But when you start to see the pattern develop of people who are publicly fighting for the players leaving the company, and at the same time, low quality games are getting released and public scandals are happening, then there's just too much evidence that the company itself is rotten.
It's a great video.
Overwatch 2 was released. It had been over 11 years since the last Blizzard game with any sort of single player narrative or really any narrative at all, excluding World of Warcraft expansions. Both in quality and the types of games that Blizzard was putting out, it just wasn't the same company. We've all heard this story before in some form or another.
In all the videos, man. The fall of Blizzard, the fall of whatever they got,
downfall of Blizzard. But for the last few months, playing through all of these games, some for the very first time, it was incredible to me just how good those older games were and how much they hold up even today. And
I really want to do a Diablo 1 stream.
The amount of influence I can see in modern games that came from Blizzard's early projects. So it makes it that much more depressing when I have to play these modern games and
I think we should,
the absurd decline in quality. And also the decline in how they treated not only their player base, but their employees. Blizzard became a bad game developer and it became a horrible place to work, which is quite the fall from grace for a company that I know millions of people used to dream of being able to work at.
Shit. Do it? We could do it sometime next week, maybe. Maybe like next Friday or so, could be fun. The modern era.
In 2022, Blizzard released Diablo Immortal, their first ever mobile-only game and the first entry in the Diablo series in over a decade.
I don't know, man. I think there was this horrible marketing for the Diablo thing, but I guess at the end of the day, they ended up making a shitload of money on that game. So maybe the bad, rep they got from it wasn't really that bad overall if they wanted money, right?
I covered this game more in depth in my video playing every mobile MMO, but all you need to know is it's just not that good. It's a shallow experience that serves more as a storefront for microtransactions than an actual game with any sort of real intention.
That's just how mobile games are, though, to be fair. Yeah.
Diablo Immortal depresses me for one main reason, though.
Yeah.
It took the Diablo formula and exploited it. Since Diablo is a series all about grinds, RNG, and character investment while trying to eke out every last bit of power from your build, it's unfortunately very easy to exploit.
Yeah, because, dude, like, what's the point then of farming, man? I just remember, man, Quinn literally spending up towards $30,000 to make his character fully biz. It's so dumb. You don't need to justify by saying they made money. I'm not trying to justify it. I'm just saying that, like, I mean, I guess for the company, that was the point, right? They just wanted money, which is sad, right? Because the point should be to make great games that people enjoy, and then therefore a lot of people buy the game, and then I guess they make money that way, right? But the goal should be to make good games, right? Obviously.
Pay-to-win mechanics can deliver huge dopamine hits in the ARPG genre, and for that reason, they're extremely easy to implement and abuse.
Yeah.
Diablo Immortal was shameless in doing just that. Not even Diablo III, a game I hate for its own reasons, locked anything other than DLCs behind additional payments. That's how far we've fallen.
Yeah.
And then there's Diablo IV from 2023, a game I thought could be a return to form for Blizzard, because I am coping.
I still haven't done the full campaign of Diablo 4.
Diablo 4 was Blizzard's first narrative game in over a decade, and finally not some lazy mobile exclusive title. And while I do think that Diablo 4 is far from awful, it just proves to me that we aren't getting anything pure from Blizzard ever again. The campaign of this game is solid, and I actually think it might even be good. And while I think the endgame is still lacking, the dev team has done a great job in the last 2 seasons of hearing and implementing player feedback to vastly improve the experience.
Yeah.
I've put dozens and dozens of hours into this game, trying out all of the classes, wanting desperately to like it, but I just can't see it as anything else than mediocre.
Shit.
And the only thing worse than a mediocre game is a mediocre game with a battle pass. Okay, so Diablo 4's credit, it's not the most predatory battle pass in the world. The free battle pass will get you all of the Smoldering Ashes, which are the only actual progression mechanic in the battle pass.
Oh, that's good at least.
But there's the problem that there's also an accelerated battle pass that lets you skip tiers to get those ashes faster. My real issue with the battle pass is simple. The game...
Man. That, it's just great. When I see these things, like, man, $150. And it's just like in-game stuff. It's not like you're not even buying it. That's so insane to me.
$70. That should be a complete finished game. The idea of charging people to get what you would consider a complete experience every single season is insane to me. No, you don't need to buy the battle pass to have a good time, but it's still a dog shit move on Blizzard's part to implement one with pay-to-win mechanics in a $70 game, especially with the $40 expansion coming up. Meaning this game, if you bought it on release, will cost you $110, not including any battle passes. I just want to remind you that this company is worth over $70 billion based on the Microsoft acquisition, and yet is leaving players to foot the bill as they continue to cash in.
Listen, from a business perspective, Blizzard is doing just fine. They're actually doing really fucking well, but I can't help thinking of that Jeff Kaplan quote about the development of Overwatch 2. If you do right by the players, then you'll be in a better place. Blizzard no longer has any diehard fans or people who are just gonna go out and buy their game because they're...
Big reason why I guess From Software has become so huge now, because that they seem to be like literally like living by that quote, right?
Name is on it. They've scorned fans of all their most beloved IPs like Diablo and Overwatch and even to an extent World of Warcraft. Their business practices have paid off. They are the most valuable game developer in the world, but all they've done is make worse games and make the game industry a worse place. Diablo 4 is the best thing, hands down, Blizzard has put out in the last 7 years. If I'm going to take Overwatch 1's fans' word for how good that game was, I'll never know. They took it offline. But Diablo 4 being the best thing is just not saying much because it's an aggressively mediocre game. Unfortunately, aggressively mediocre might just be the best thing Blizzard can do.
The cinematics though in that game is so fucking good though. Okay, I'm gonna give them that, dude. The style and the cinematics of Diablo 4 is freaking next level.
I didn't expect to love some of these past Blizzard games to the extent I did, especially the Warcraft series. I expected that when I revisited these older games, I'd find tons of issues and realize that they're really just products of their time, and nostalgia was the reason that players of those games still love them today. But instead,
Diablo 3 had the same issue in launch. It was trash, but then for a while it was amazing. Yeah, they're probably gonna keep working on Diablo 4 and getting it fixed, you know. Little by little, new expansion's gonna come out, and it's probably gonna be a lot better than it was. I would have probably assumed so, and you know,
I found games that reinvented genres and really tried their hardest to make games that would matter.
Yeah, I agree,
These games were amazing collaborative efforts by designers and developers and artists and writers who were all on the same page. And it's really sad to see how Blizzard and Activision and all of these big companies and the higher ups have been phasing out the people like Patrick Wyatt, Ben Brode, Jeff Kaplan, and all of the behind-the-scenes people who aren't as public-facing, who do really care about putting out high-quality games. Instead, they're more focused on putting out the next RNG loot box multiplayer game that will make them tons of money by abusing their player base. That all said, my job's not done yet. There is one more Blizzard game I haven't played yet. And it's pretty iconic because it's actually the first standalone Warcraft game since World of Warcraft.
Wait, what is it?
So let's go play the mobile-only Warcraft Rumble.
I don't think this game is horrible for being a mobile game. Okay, mobile games just have a weird vibe, but it doesn't look like a bad game, honestly. I will admit, I actually almost downloaded this game one time while traveling because I had a few hours to kill, but I ended up having to like download it, then install like some sort of like an update for it, and I had to like re-update it, and I had to open it again, and I re-updated it again, and it pissed me off, so I uninstalled and I raw docked the flight instead. Yeah, I literally just did nothing on the flight. I would rather just sit and do nothing on my flight than sit and update this stupid game like 6 times. So I just raw docked it the entire way, and I just did nothing for the flight. Yeah. Oh.
The game's actually surprisingly good.
Yeah.
I'm gonna poop for real now.
Dude, this was a really good video. This was structured really well. I liked it. Super enjoyable to watch. That was super nice. Oh.
Subscribe.
This video was brought to you by my shadow cabal.
Really good.
But they're secret, so pretend you didn't see this part unless your name is a hobo with a spork.
Hey, you're a patron.
Oh, the my fell off.
Hey, you're a patron.
Oh shit.
I like you very much.
Oh, look at that. Oh my god, it's so cute.
Patreon.
Is it gonna go into the box? No, it's not.
You went to the URL in the description and you gave me your money, and that's pretty neat. Hey,
Check out the video here, guys. Check out the video from Idol right here.
hey, you're a patron
Follow him. He makes great videos, chat. Great videos.
very much, cause hey, you're a patron.
They do Stevinsky, but the shipping is still a little bit pricey, sadly.
URL in the description and you gave me your money, and
Good but sad video. I don't know. I mean, obviously, all of these videos always end up a little bit sad because it's like the current Blizzard and stuff like that. But man, this was an interesting, fun video to watch, and it really made me very nostalgic about those older games.